In Australia, over 40,000 men and women are currently behind bars. They've shattered countless lives, destroyed families. Some have been responsible for unspeakable violence.
There are just some people that are just evil of heart.
She's just scary. She's just real scary.
Some people are born with just that evil gene.
If you think you've seen and heard it all, you haven't. The truth of life behind bars in some of Australia's highest security prisons, told by the people who know.
It's dangerous on a daily basis. It's life-threatening.
Stabbings, hangings, people getting their heads stomped on.
If I was dangerous when I went in, I was more dangerous when I came out.
In this episode, the man behind the Central Coast massacre.
He just went berserk.
There's a maybe a four-wheel drive with a pump-action shotgun.
Murdering 6 unsuspecting people.
He shot his son in the back of the head.
What's the report of another shooting there?
And this was done with a sawn-off shotgun. You don't just wake up one morning saying, I'm going to destroy 6 people. What made him do that?
Plus, one of the most despicable killers this country has ever seen. He murdered a young mum and her 2-year-old daughter, but what he does next is depraved.
He's a predator who takes genuine joy out of the pain he causes. He's a sick, evil man.
And he almost got away with it. March 29, 2013. It was Good Friday, and on the New South Wales Central Coast, a 26-year-old former security guard was enjoying a barbecue at home with friends. Until an argument with his girlfriend caused a quick-tempered man to snap. Corey Breen decided today was the day to wipe out his entire family, succeeding in stabbing his father and his father's partner to death.
I remember seeing the video of this blood-soaked man, obviously highly agitated, and he's quite upfront about what he's done and what he intended to do.
The blade would have been up this way, so I was with the pointy end like that way.
For his savage crimes, he received a total sentence of 42 years and was brought here to Lithgow Correctional Centre. But even his own mother says it's not long enough. She should know Breen wanted to kill her too.
I don't know how to feel now. It's just a horrendous day.
Breen's neighbours are now 350 of some of Australia's worst murderers, rapists and gangsters. Opened in 1990, Lithgow's cells have few luxuries. Just a bunk bed, toilet, a table and a shower. In some sections of the prison, inmates are locked in cages just to make phone calls. And although prison officers are unarmed, a rifle is kept in the watchtower.
Corey Breen was quite an extraordinary human being for all the wrong reasons. He had an extremely volatile temper. He had a short fuse and was one that was really, really easily lit. You know when to stand back fast because he's about to blow. People like Corey can get upset when the wind changes, what makes him a very volatile prisoner.
The only thing going for him was his honesty. On the night of the murders, while still covered in his family's blood, he confessed everything to police.
You're not obliged to say or do anything unless you wish. Anything you say or do will be recorded electronically on DVD as the interview takes place and may be used as evidence. Do you understand that?
Yeah, man, all good.
While Corey immediately admitted his offence, he's absolutely apparently devastated by what he did. But doesn't mean Corey Breen will walk out the door of prison a changed man. He may admit it all, but is that short fuse still there?
According to Corey, it all started with his dad, who loved drinking and gambling more than his children. Corey was no fan, to say the least.
I take it from the way you describe it that you've got a hatred for, your father, Paul Breen.
Absolute pure hatred.
What's that stem from, mate?
Mate, that stems from him beating the shit out of me when I was a kid.
Corey Breen's story was that he'd had a very bad childhood, and this made me what I am today. And this is why I want to kill my entire family. They ruined my life. They're going to die for what they did to me. But the family say no, it wasn't the case. His allegations of abuse was rubbish. He actually had a normal, pretty much conventional, easygoing childhood. It's just that Corey got involved in drugs and problems pretty early on in life, and that's what shaped the man he became rather than an allegedly abusive childhood. Corey was his own creation.
By the mid-90s, Breen's parents broke up, and his dad fell for Felicia Crawford. Together, they had a son and were raising her daughter. Corey never did like Felicia, and he never hid it, often saying he wished she were dead. But alarm bells really rang out in 2010.
He'd written to his mother saying that he was a monster within him, and he knew that at some stage he would kill people. That was largely ignored, unfortunately. Not much you can do about it. And of course, when someone threatens that, there's a big difference between the threat in a letter and actually taking place. But 4 years later, on Good Friday, that threat became a reality. The monster within Corey Breen was released.
It's like a time bomb sitting in my head. I knew sooner or later I was going to go and fucking get me old man and the rest of the and just tonight was a night.
There's a barbecue at Corey's place. He's living with his partner. A lot of alcohol, presumably some drugs drifting on at some point that he was ingesting anyway. He has a domestic dispute, doesn't amount to terribly much, but he decides to go on a homicidal rampage.
Corey Breen stormed out of the house, but not before grabbing a 19-centimetre hunting knife. He had murder on his mind.
Corey has decided to go and start killing people, in particular his father and stepmother and the rest of his family. He planned on pretty much wiping out the entire Breen clan.
But first, he needs transport.
He steals a push bike and is riding through the Central Coast with a carving knife on a push bike. Then he finally steals a car, a Commodore.
At 7:20 p.m, Breen heads to the home of the first people on his hit list.
Drove the car down to Long Jetty, planned on murdering my grandparents. I was going to butcher them.
Yeah.
But I was like,
when you say that, do you mean that you were going to kill them?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah. Is that Norma and Colin?
Norma and Colin, yep. Going to get butchered. So if you're quiet, you can walk up the side of the house, come around to the back of the house.
Yeah.
Saw my grandpa sitting there, grandma sitting there. I have my knife in my hand, ready to roll. Then all of a sudden, like a searchlight came on, like a security light. Turned out it was the next door neighbour, returning from shopping or whatnot.
His grandparents were bloody lucky that he didn't get inside the house. A security light comes on, which pretty much saved their lives.
Still hungry for murder, on to stop number 2, his dad's house.
He announces his arrival by smashing a glass pane in the door before crashing through, just to let his father know that the end is heading his way. I mean, it's a cruel, theatrical thing to do, but this guy is so revved up, so on mission to kill, he wanted a bit of theatre with it.
And then I opened the front door there and walked straight over to him and fucking started stabbing him. He's like, Corey, don't do it. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry that I did all that shit. And stabbed him to death.
Killing his father was never going to be enough. Coming up next, Corey Breen zeroes in on his next victim. Corey Allen Breen has just stabbed his own father to death.
Then I walked out the back so I could hear you screaming. And I'm pretty sure Felicia, that fucking filthy fucking slut of a thing, she was in the hallway when I smashed through the front door, because she walked out the back door and across the patio. And if you walk out the back door and across the patio, there's a back door into this garage/laundry.
Breen's next target was his dad's partner, Felicia.
At some point, I opened the door and she was behind the door, and I had the door up against her like that and just stabbed the fuck out of her.
She doesn't die immediately. She managed to drag herself back into the house where she expires on the floor.
Breen got back in the car. His own mum, Debbie, was next on his list.
So he's got a very clear hierarchy of who he wants to kill on that day.
I had a police wagon follow me from a roundabout. It's just basically just a matter of time.
Eventually, the clutch on Corey's car gave out. If it hadn't, the death toll would have been so much worse.
Got out of the car, it was still rolling, ran up, hit a dead end. Not looking to get shot by the cops. Mate, she's surrendered. Old mate fired the taser at me feet or something. I don't know where he shot that. Terrible. But through the knife, dropped me guts. Put the bracelets on.
In only 2 hours, Breen had gone from an outdoor barbecue to an indoor bloodbath. With his hands still covered in his family's blood, Breen confessed to everything. And no surprise that when his case hit court, he pleaded guilty.
Double murderer Corey Breen could spend 4 decades behind bars. Today he was sentenced for killing his own father and stepmother on Good Friday more than 2 years ago.
Corey Breen described himself as a monster. Now he won't walk the streets till at least 2046.
But inside, Corey Breen causes no trouble. There are even signs he's a changed man. His good behaviour earning him the privilege of a job.
Corey was working in the cafe attached to one of the prisons, and the cafe feeds not only prison officers but also members of the public who've come to visit prisoners inside, and with a couple of head honchos from corrective services. And we're sitting in this very pleasant, airy canteen. It's very, very almost normal considering the odd place that it's in. And there in the kitchen was Corey Breen with a very large knife doing some slicing and dicing. And then I had an oh shit moment, because I had last seen Corey Breen in an interview room in a bloodstained T-shirt telling police what crime had committed. The prison governor said, "Don't worry, it'll be all right." She was very reassuring. And she said he's a really good worker, very dedicated to what he's doing, learning cooking skills, and he's doing really, really well. Seemed like a pleasant young fella, just very ordinary, very uninteresting human being. But to get to that cafe where you're actually dealing in close proximity with members of the public shows that Corey has responded well in prison, that he's a good prisoner, he's not causing problems, he's learning, and he's accepted his fate. He's also accepted his terrible, terrible crimes, which he did from the outset.
Of little comfort to his family will be the letter he wrote behind bars, asking them to move on. Breen is eligible for parole after 33 years, when he'll be 62. Being in prison isn't all bad. While prisoners serve their time inside, at least they're served 3 meals a day. The trouble is, prison food leaves a lot to be desired.
I first went to prison in 1988. When I first went to prison food was great. In the late 90s, they changed the whole system and went to what's called cook-chill meals.
They're frozen, they're delivered to the prisons, they're heated up through ovens and microwaves and then given to the prisoners. I think a lot of the inmates throw their meals out. They just don't like it.
The meals that are being provided, I would not feed to my dog.
Prison food is horrendous. You would literally open it and it would smell like a dog did a poo. I'm like, and this is what they feed them.
I go past garbage bins, right? And there's a smell in a garbage bin that reminds me of the jail food because it stinks. It actually stinks.
I couldn't picture eating it even if I was dying. It's just one of the worst things I've ever seen given to anybody.
The flies won't even land on it because there's nothing in it.
The prisoners have been known to spit in meals, to ejaculate in meals, to put faeces in meals.
And I think that's why I constantly had an upset stomach.
Ugh, you give me flashbacks thinking about the food.
A lot of people now buy food on the buy-up. And what that is a sheet of paper with a list of a whole lot of items, and you put that in, and the next week, that's the order that you get.
It's like your tuna, eggs. It's nothing to really be grateful about. You know what I mean? Like you're not buying ribeye, put it that way.
If you want to eat fancy inside, you need a little help from your friends on the outside.
I was with a really high-profile drug importer, and I said, can you organise someone to drop some food off? He goes, yeah, what do you want? Green lobster tails, and which we cooked on a little barbecue, which was right up on top of my cupboard, hanging out the window of a fan blowing the smoke, yeah? And he sat on the bed, a bunk bed, drinking Remy Martini cognac, and that cost us $100.
In prison, even food can be used as a weapon.
Well, in my section, most of the bashings and stabbings and stuff like that was just because you took the last spoon or they want your milk. I used to collect my jams from our breakfast, like ration packs. Some of the girls knew that, and they came up to me one morning and said, oh, can we swap a can of Coke for jam? So I said, yeah, that's fine. So we went up, I got my can of Coke, and I was watching them at the microwave for ages. Anyways, they put the packets in there and they melted up all the jam and walked up to the girl next to me and threw it on her face. It stuck, it's burnt, it left scarring. She got rushed to the clinic, didn't come back to our area for about 2 weeks. Very traumatic to do such a horrific thing to somebody.
Regional New South Wales is full of charming country towns with character, history and heritage. But in the case of Goulburn, it has one landmark that makes it stand out from the crowd. Its very own high-security prison that houses Supermax. Behind these concrete walls, steel bars and electric fences, the Goulburn Supermax has contained some of the most depraved and dangerous prisoners ever to set foot on Australian soil. The most well-known, Ivan Milat. It turns out this next prisoner and Milat have plenty in common. Coming up next, the prisoner who is pure evil, as the Belanglo State Forest reveals more of its dark secrets.
Was this another victim? Now, police thought it could be. How has that gone undiscovered for years? It beggars belief.
Now, there are some crimes that are so horrific, so extreme, so cruel, that it's hard to imagine that any human can behave in such a sickening way. Well, unfortunately, this man, Daniel Holden, managed to do just that. He murdered a young mum and her 2-year-old daughter, then stuffed the toddler into a suitcase and dumped her by the side of the road. If you want to know what evil looks like, this is it.
Daniel Holden is as sick and cowardly and twisted an individual as you would get. He's a predator who takes genuine joy out of the pain he causes. The violence is gratuitous. It serves no purpose other than for his own gratification. He is a sick, evil man.
In 2018, Daniel Holden was given 2 life sentences for murdering Carly Pearce-Stevenson and her daughter, Candice. For a man with a history of crimes across 3 states of Australia, Holden's home is now Goulburn Prison in New South Wales. On the 29th of August 2010, a couple of dirt bike riders discovered human remains in the infamous Belanglo State Forest in New South Wales. Infamous because it's where serial killer Ivan Milat savagely murdered 7 backpackers.
Was this another victim? Police thought it could be. Media thought it could be. It was a reasonable stretch to make at the time, so it generated a lot of interest.
Tests on the remains showed they must have been there for 2 years while Milat was in prison, so it couldn't have been him. But how did she die? And most importantly, who was she?
She became known to the police and the public, reported by us, as Angel, simply because of an angelic motive that was on the remains of her t-shirt that was discovered in Belanglo.
Despite public appeals by police, Angel was unidentified for a further 5 years. But all that changed in 2015.
Heartbreaking images released and a young life cut too short. The items of clothing were found inside this grey Lanza suitcase. A party dress, a ballet slipper and pyjama pants.
On a desert highway, 1,100 kilometres from Belanglo, a passing motorist spotted a tattered suitcase dumped by the side of the road. The case's contents almost defy belief.
Police believe the skeletal remains found alongside a South Australian highway are female.
The victim is most likely a little girl, 2 to 4 years of age, who would be about this size.
They say it's likely she had fair hair and could have died up to 8 years ago.
Launching national campaigns.
This homemade quilt was found with a young girl's skeletal remains and clothing.
To see who might know something, anything that could help in their investigation.
Police have received 93 calls, 5 of them from interstate.
This eventually led to a major breakthrough in the case. The little girl in the suitcase and the young woman's body in the Belanglo State Forest have matching DNA. But there was one more sinister match.
Police didn't just make that DNA match, they would have been doing their work in the background too. Who was the last person to be with them? And it wasn't hard to find where that road led to.
That road led to Daniel Holdem. You see, back in 2008, he and Carly Pearce-Stevenson were friends, living in Alice Springs. Holdem set off on a road trip, and Carly and her daughter Candelise, affectionately known as Candles, soon joined Holdem in Adelaide. Carly's friends didn't think much of Holdem. They would have liked him even less had they known he had a history of assault, domestic violence and child sex offences.
Daniel Holdem has only had a relationship with Carly for a couple of months, and now they're all off travelling to the ACT. They stay with friends there.
1 week into their travels, Carly calls a friend, saying she's made a huge mistake going on a trip with this man. It was the last time any of Carly's friends or family would hear her voice.
Holdem takes off in the middle of the night with Carly. All that's known is that they had some sort of argument, and some way out of camera at the Belanglo State Forest, he murders her, defiles her body and, unbelievably, takes photos of it. He returns to the friend and says, "We had a fight. Carly's taken off. I'm going to take Candelise now back to her grandmother in South Australia." Only one part of that is true. Holdem stopped at a hotel, suffocated her, sexually assaulted her, put her in a suitcase and dumped her in rural South Australia, only to be discovered years after her mother was discovered in a separate state.
This story is sick and twisted. But what Daniel Holdom does next makes it clear he is a man without any morals and fully deserves to be where he is today.
There is no doubt at all that Daniel Holdom is someone who deserves to be locked up for the rest of his life.
The year is 2008, and Daniel Holdom has just murdered Carly Pearce Stevenson and her 2-year-old daughter, Candace. Incredibly, Holdom has picked up where he left off, resuming a relationship with his old flame Hazel Passmore, a friend of Carly's and someone who had lost her leg in a car crash, with Holdom at the wheel. A crash that also killed 2 of Passmore's young children. She was in hospital recovering when Holdom ran off with Carly. Despite knowing all about his heinous crime, and even seeing photos of Carly's dumped body, Passmore took him back. Together, they stole $70,000 of Carly's ongoing Social Security payments. Her bank account was also accessed, and friends and family were still receiving the occasional text.
Now, he would message from Carly's phone purporting to be Carly, saying, "I'm not going to tell you where I am. I'm fine. Just leave me alone," so that it wouldn't raise any red flags, which was working quite well as far as family were concerned. They could be convinced, perhaps, that she's still alive, until 2 bodies are found in 2 different states, linked by DNA, and both linked by the last person each of them saw.
In 2015, 7 years after the murders, a combination of DNA results and testimony from Hazel Passmore finally led to Holdom's arrest. It wasn't hard to find him. He was already serving a 4-year and 3-month sentence for the sexual assault of a 9-year-old girl.
Good evening. The man who brutally murdered a young mother and her 2-year-old daughter, whose remains were found in a suitcase on the side of a South Australian highway, has been given 2 life sentences. Loved ones applauded in the courtroom as the monster responsible for such heinous crimes was jailed.
During his long and lonely hours inside Goulburn Prison, Holdom has become quite the writer, putting pen to paper in a series of handwritten letters. But rather than expressing any remorse, if anything, his letters try to justify his actions, blaming his crimes on his own history of child abuse and drug dependency. Without remorse, there is no rehabilitation.
I think it's very fair to say, of everything we've learned about Daniel Holdom's crimes, all of us are comfortable with him spending the rest of his life locked up.
Just because these criminals are locked up, don't expect them to play by the rules. Contraband and prison go hand in hand.
Contraband is anything in the prison that is on the banned list. So the drugs, the cigarettes, lighters, pills. That gets brought in lots of different ways.
It's nothing on a day to see tennis balls flying over. In those tennis balls you can have cocaine, heroin, hash, anything that you can imagine. Drones come into correctional centres with drugs on them. A lot of money can be made in a correctional centre if you can get those drugs in.
So the way that I did it, my experience with bringing in contraband was we go out to visit and I would sit down across the table from the visitor. The visitor would get it into my hand, whatever it is. The other hand, I would pull open my underwear, drop it down the front of my overalls, and it would go straight into my underwear. Then, after the visit had finished, I would put it away, which means you are secreting it in your vagina. And that's what I would do. And so I did that many, many times when I was young. And just became really good at it.
With men, there's no way you're putting a iPhone up your ass. I don't care. The women's prison, that they hide stuff inside themselves. And that's why I used to hear the female officers, they would always ask the girls, like, what's in your safety box?
On the loading dock, officers stumble upon something big, hidden in boxes of what appears to be A4 paper, bags and bags of drugs.
Most of the contraband's coming in from not the visitors. It's coming in from the prison officers or other people who are working in the system.
At times over 15, 16 years, there's been a few staff that I've worked with that have been dismissed because of bringing items in.
I know that some people have been caught for drugs and are no longer in the job. They either help bring it in or they go to this room security, they take the laundry, and when they bring the laundry back, magically, we got mobile phones and drugs. It's magic.
Look, it's lucrative for them. They're on X amount of money, and it's not hard to work out who's got the best car in the car park and who's got the investment property, and it's not hard to work out who was doing it.
What seems like it's nothing on the outside has different sort of intrinsic value on the inside. So if I bring in something that has value on the outside, it has 10,000 times the value on the inside.
Look at a phone, right? Say a $50 phone that you'd buy from Woolworths or something like that. It's cost them $50. They can sell that for $1,000 to an inmate.
I mean, I personally got offered in the second year by, I won't say the motorcycle gang's name, but like I got offered $5,000 a week to bring in drugs. That's a lot of money a week. Back then, $5,000 now a week's a lot of money. Obviously, I said no, but how much is your honour worth? True. What are you worth?
Coming up on Australia's most dangerous prisoners, a gunman who went on a shopping spree.
Further information from Terrible One is that the offender may be in a four-wheel drive with a pump-action shotgun.
The ones that hit me the hardest was his son. He shot his son in the back of the head. And this was done with a sawn-off shotgun. So you can imagine what that would have looked like. Head would have come clean off.
On the 27th of October 1992, after discovering his 23-year-old ex-girlfriend had moved on with a new man, 45-year-old Malcolm Baker saw red. Blood red. In a jealous rage, he shot Kerry Ann's new boyfriend in the face. Then shooting and killing Kerry Ann, her 18-year-old sister Lisa, who was 8 months pregnant, and the girl's father Tom, before driving off and continuing the massacre.
Further information from Terrible One is that the offender may be in a four-wheel drive with a pump-action shotgun and may possibly reside on the scenic drive, scenic highway, Turgle area. Continue at Barrow Bay with the report of another shooting there.
That night, father of 9 Malcolm Baker would murder 6 people and an unborn baby.
One of the ones that hit me the hardest was his son. He shot his son in the back of the head. And this was done with a sawn-off shotgun. So you can imagine what that would have looked like. Head would have come clean off. It's a bad day. Gone really bad.
This bad day earned Baker 6 life sentences. He's now in Long Bay Correctional Centre, where he crossed paths with prison officer Bella Gall.
He seemed like a really nice guy to me. Small guy, chubby. This looks like a granddad. Had a beard, smiling, always happy, never uncooperative, friendly. You will not tell who he is. Like, you will not tell his past by speaking to him, ever. And that's the scariest thing. You can't predict who's got what in them.
So how did it come to this? Baker's childhood might provide a few clues. He had a violent father who once threatened to shoot Baker and his 2 sisters. But after leaving home at 17, apart from some petty theft, there were no signs of what was to come.
Malcolm Baker himself was actually a very stable man and has always been a stable man. Generous man and one who was respected in the area. And so always been a gentle person, except for 50 minutes.
5 weeks earlier, Kerry Ann Gannon had called time on their 5-year relationship. After copping a black eye, she'd taken out a restraining order against her ex, a man 22 years her senior. Police became involved, confiscating 5 of Baker's guns. The trouble was, he'd hidden the 6th, and tragically, it was this shotgun that did all the damage.
He took it to this Terrigal house, killing the 3 members of the Gannon family and wounding Chris Gall, Kerry Ann's new boyfriend. Baker's next victim was his own son. He suspected him of having an affair with Kerry Ann.
After shooting 4 people at Terrigal, Baker drives to the quiet nearby suburb of Batteau Bay. After murdering his 27-year-old son David, Baker got back behind the wheel. Scores of police converged on the Central Coast in a massive manhunt as the shooter was driving for 30 minutes to the North Wyong home of this man, Ross Smith.
A car, another ute, a diesel ute. What car? Those ones there.
And this is Malcolm Baker. The two trying to work out a business dispute some months earlier. They did not resolve their issues.
They were next called to a farmhouse on the Pacific Highway north of Wyong. Inside, officers found the body of 35-year-old Ross Smith. His de facto wife, Leslie Reed, lay next to him, mortally wounded by a shotgun blast.
After murdering family, former friends and strangers, Baker called into a mate's house who persuaded him to give himself up, confessing all to police in the hours that followed.
Are you the person responsible for those persons' death?
Yes. I just seen the red. Obviously I've gone round there and done things I shouldn't have, but it's happened, so.
In your own words, explain what you mean by done things.
Shot people.
The man felt disgraced and he felt that he disgraced himself as a human being.
How many times did you shoot your son?
I don't know.
You don't remember?
He reconciled himself to the fact that he'd done something really appalling, accepted responsibility for it, and pleaded guilty, and he received 6 life sentences.
Is there anything else you'd like to say in relation to these matters, Mr. Baker? Can you say?
Cockhead! Fucking idiot! No, they hang you!
Malcolm Baker has spent 3 decades in prison. 3 decades of life that his 6 victims were robbed of. But some people believe there's an argument for Baker's release. Coming up on Australia's most dangerous prisoners, the other side of a mass murderer.
He was in a cage. He was sitting at the back of it, and there was a grey-haired man sitting by himself. So, how you going? And he said, "G'day, my name's Malcolm Baker," and had a smile on his face.
On the 27th of October, 1992,
The offender may be in a 4-wheel drive with a pump-action shotgun.
Malcolm Baker went on a rampage on the New South Wales Central Coast, killing 6 people, including his own son.
Are you the person responsible for those persons' death?
Yes.
Despite Baker's apparent remorse, after his conviction, Baker was diagnosed as psychotic and judged to be a risk to himself and others. He spent 10 years in solitary confinement, locked in ankle cuffs. It was here that Brett Collins, working for the prison support group Justice Action, met Baker for the first time.
He was in a cage. He was sitting at the back of it, and there was a grey-haired man sitting by himself. So, how you going? And he said, "G'day, my name's Malcolm Baker," and had a smile on his face, and his a languid approach. And so we shook hands through there, and from that time onwards, he actually he reached out to us. It was quite clear that the health interests of Malcolm were not at the forefront of the way he was being treated. He never tried to escape. He never tried to hurt anyone's child.
But let's not forget why he was there. Malcolm Baker staged a massacre. 5 days before the murders, he confided to his daughter, "I'm going to shoot them, kill them all."
Although he did kill 6 people, inside prison he's entitled to be treated with respect and not to be destroyed. So we made a defence of Malcolm as a matter of principle until eventually we won. And we finally had the diagnosis that he was psychotic actually overturned. We established the entitlement of this man to being unmedicated, to go and get a job, and we then negotiated with corrective services to ensure that he had at least a more normal life inside prison.
Now 75 years old, Malcolm Baker recently suffered a stroke and can barely speak. After 30 years behind bars, Brett Collins believes Baker's prison time should be up.
Malcolm Baker is not a dangerous man. He's been immensely damaged by the imprisonment process. So he can come out. He would never cause any safety issue in the community. There's not even a question about that.
But that's just one man's opinion. Others who have spent time with the mass murderer hold different views.
In my opinion, Malcolm Baker should be kept in there, because if you're capable of snapping once, 75 years old, you're more than capable of doing it again. Because you're out in the world, there is no support system for those guys. His family will turn on him. Society has turned on him. He's lost so many years. He's going to come back out, and the first sign of trouble, he's going to resort to what he's done best. If you can kill your own blood, you can kill anyone. I would never let you out now.
Corey Breen has a non-parole period of 33 years. Daniel Holdham is serving 2 life sentences, and Malcolm Baker is serving 6 life sentences.
Don't just wake up one morning saying, I'm going to destroy 6 people. No normal person does that. What made him do that? Because it's not like someone who's premeditated, done it over the course of 10 years and you go, he's sick. It's like something happened because he had a normal life before and there's no other real history of him doing anything. When you ask him, he just can't remember. I asked him, he just can't remember. He goes, I don't know, man.
What was obvious in Corey Breen from fairly early on that was he had an extremely volatile temper. The guy had serious control issues, and those control issues I think would have been compounded by drug and alcohol abuse. But there's a curiosity too, looking at both the psychiatrists, didn't find that he actually had any mental illness. Yes, he certainly had some problems, but mentally ill, no. I hope in someone like Corey Breen that there is just that one chance of redemption. You hope that's the case.
But in the case of Daniel Holdham, you suspect that the root cause of his crimes is just pure evil.
This is not a man who made a mistake. Let's be clear. This is a man, as we've learned, who enjoyed the pain of others. He picked on the weak and the vulnerable, like the coward he is.
3 men, 3 different acts of extreme violence, but with the same legal outcome. Justice has been served.